All right, so thank you for joining me today, Aaron. I am excited for you to be here and share a little bit more about your minimalist journey. So, before we get into all of that, can you just tell us a little bit more about your role in the outdoor industry and some of the activities that you enjoy?
The outdoor industry is a huge part of my business. Actually, that is a part of my business. I'm a backpacking dietitian. Essentially, I get to backpack and hike for a living. I create recipes and meal plans for backpackers via our online platform at backcountryfoodie.com.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll share the link to that in the episode notes. So, if people want to check that out, they can go there. How did you get into that?
Good question. By accident, actually. I've been a clinical dietitian for almost 16 years and just hit a point. I was getting ready to turn 40, and I'd gotten to the point where I had the good job. I had a nice house. I had a nice car. I was in a good relationship. I had everything you're ever supposed to have when you're 40, but I was miserable. So something needed to change. So I actually decided to up and quit my job. That was a very well-paying, secure job. So my family and friends were like, "Are you nuts? You're turning 40. Why are you quitting this thing that's so stable?" And I'd always wanted to hike the Pacific Crest Trail. I'd been a backpacker for almost 20 years, but at that point in time, so this was just kind of my, you know what, I'm just going to check out. And I literally started on my 40th birthday, which is this Saturday. So
Oh, yay.
it'll be 5 years from that, from when I started in 2 more days. So in preparation for the PCT, being the dietitian, and actually at the time I was a long distance trail runner too, is I was having a hard time keeping on weight just running on the weekends. So I knew feeding myself every day for 5 or maybe even 6 months was going to be a big problem because I didn't have weight to lose. Some hikers have 30 and 40 pounds that they can afford to lose and be okay. I didn't. So I really started panicking. I'd never made my own food before because I'd only been out 3 to 5 days at a time. So I
Mhm.
was like, well, mountain house is too expensive. It's too big. It's too salty. So that's not going to work. So I started buying a bunch of cookbooks for DIY backpacking meals. And again, being the dietitian, I looked at all the nutrition components of it. I was like, well, this doesn't have enough protein. It's too heavy. There's too much rice in it. There's like all these things that I wasn't happy with. So I just started making my own recipes, and little did I know it would turn into a business 5 years later. And that's what I do now. So
That's
it
so
just kind
cool.
of happened.
Yeah, that it is crazy how some of those like big life changes happen. Sometimes they're just like, this is what I'm doing now.
And I love it. I can't even imagine going back to my old job now. And that's what I thought I would retire from.
Wow. So is backpacking, you'd say, your main outdoor activity?
Absolutely. Yeah. My husband wished I'd change it up a little bit more and do some other things, but it's my way of getting out. It's my time to tune out too from all the emails and phone calls and, all those kinds of things. I literally check out. There's no Instagram or Facebook when I'm out there. So it's actually really part of my mental health as well.
Yeah, that's what I really like about backpacking too, especially the more remote you get, then it's like you're just so removed from the world. It's so awesome.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And when we first started connecting, we were talking a lot about discussing kind of like meals and food and stuff on the trail, which I think is awesome that you help people with that. But then we kind of shifted gears to talk about other areas of your life that really fit into the outdoor minimalist theme, I guess. So, moving into that topic, what does minimalism mean to you as a person?
For me, it's really evolved with time, to be honest. So I think I really became more of a minimalist over the last couple of years when I started doing the long distance backpacking. I've done several more trips since the PCT. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to finish it because I got injured, but I've done several other trips since then. And then we also moved into a sprinter van for 2.5 years. So with time, I've just downsized to literally whatever's on my back, I can live with and be totally comfortable. And when we were in the van, we lived with whatever fit in 60 square feet is what we had. And I don't miss anything. So that's just what my minimalist is. And then I'm also environmentally friendly. So I'm trying to think more about the garbage that we're producing.
Mhm.
That's one of the things that really came to my attention when I was doing my PCT hike was the number of wrappers that I was throwing away every day, the number of plastic baggies I was throwing around. So I've since transitioned to doing more compostable things and more reusing things. So I think with time, my minimalism has gotten more important to me too, because of that reason.
Yeah, it's really hard, especially if you're like a full-time traveler, but then also a backpacker. It's hard to cut back on that waste because you're eating so much like packaged and
You know,
processed food.
right. And you can't buy things in bulk because you don't have room to store it. So everything's a
Yeah.
small packaging just because that's all the space that you have.
Yeah. So would you say that when you moved into the van is kind of when you started downsizing and shifted into that minimalist mindset, or when did that happen?
That's what I thought when we first started talking about the topic for the episode, but then it just dawned on me a few days ago that I started doing this 20 years ago, when I sold everything and bought a boat. I lived on a 36-foot boat for 2 years, maybe going on 3 years. So at the time, minimalism wasn't just something that you thought about at the time. It was more like a cool adventure. So I ended up selling the boat and then going back to collecting stuff, which is what I call it now. It's just stuff. So then really my current minimalist lifestyle is more when we moved into the van 2.5 years ago.
Oh, okay, cool. So you've kind of done it like twice in two different like
And
settings
two
and
totally different
mindsets.
like places in my life. Yeah.
How did that look for you? I mean, you can talk about just the van or you can talk about both, how they compare, but how did downsizing look in your life?
Well, originally for the boat time, it was just, I had really just graduated from graduate school. So I didn't really own a lot of stuff anyway. So that wasn't as big of a deal just to sell like all my college furniture that really wasn't sentimental. I hadn't collected that many things. So that wasn't as big a deal. Whereas moving into the van, I'd collected things for a long time. So that had been collecting ever since the boat experience. So when we did decide to move into the van, we had one huge garage sale. And I was so embarrassed by the amount of stuff that we had that when we were moving it out into our carport at the house that we were renting at the time, that was like, I haven't seen this in 5 years. Like, what is this even? I was still holding on to stuff from high school. Like, why am I holding on to this? Like, it just isn't meaningful for me. So letting go of those kinds of things was pretty easy. And actually, we downsized 4 more times after that while we
Oh,
were living
wow.
in the van, because we thought we would live in New Mexico and then we thought we'd live in Colorado. So we had a storage unit in each of those states as we kind of decided where we were going to live. So each time we're like, we don't feel like moving this again. So that's going into the garbage or recycling or, Goodwill. So then we go to another storage unit. We're like, we don't feel like moving it again. So that's going to go to Goodwill. Then now we have only what's actually in our house right now, which is very, very little.
Yeah, so is that just what was in your van, or did you end up getting a few things? Obviously,
um,
furniture, probably, but
So we ended up with, I think when we moved, we're now on the central coast of California. When we moved here, I think we had a 6x8 little U-Haul trailer behind the van. And it was mostly all of our sports gear, like our skis and bicycles and those kinds of things that didn't fit in the van. We did have kind of a winter selection of things and then a summer selection of things. So depending on the season, that's what got put into our garage in the van, which is underneath the bed. So that's all that we really brought with us. And the one sentimental item that Chris was just like, why are you carrying this around? Is my grandfather's rocking chair that he made. So that is the one thing that has been with me since I was really young. So that didn't fit in the van. So we had to have the trailer for the rocking chair so I could bring that with me.
yeah, those sentimental items I feel like are hard to part from,
Yeah.
but I mean, obviously it's very meaningful.
Mm.
So when you were doing that initial downsizing, you said that you had that big yard sale. And so was that like, did you get rid of all of your stuff then during that process, or did you have to take other steps at all?
No, that was the big clean out of things. And then we were still kind of attached to things. So we didn't know what the van life situation was going to be like. We didn't know, well, maybe we're going to need this or maybe we're going to need that because we weren't sure where in the country we were actually going to live. So that was just I know I haven't used this in this time period. And it actually ended up being 2 Goodwill trips. There was so much stuff that we got rid of, which was really embarrassing when you show up and people are in line at Goodwill and they're like, come on, like how much stuff are you dropping
Yeah.
off? So
Yes. I have experienced that with getting rid of things before too. Like if I do a big move or something and you're
mhm.
like, this is a lot of things and I don't even know how I got all of this.
Right. I mean, I was really embarrassed. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't even, I didn't even know I had this stuff. So,
What do you think was the easiest part about downsizing for you?
well, because I've done it before, I've always been kind of a purger with time. So I've
Mm.
always kind of had a personal rule. If I haven't used it in 2 years, I tend to get rid of it. There was more of the things that I thought sentimentally, because this is just my mom's very sentimental. So she's always hung on to things of our childhood and things of her childhood and that kind of thing. So it was more of the getting rid of like my high school jacket, my high school like swim towel, all those kind of things that we don't have children. So I don't really have anyone to pass those things down to that probably wouldn't be sentimental anyway because it was my high school things. So I would say those were the harder things to get rid of. Chris, my husband, had never downsized before, so it was really hard for him to let go. And I will say now with him not here right now is I got rid of things for him without him knowing. So he didn't know
Yes.
until we got to here in California that I was like, oh, by the way, like you don't have your tennis shoes anymore. I got rid of those way, way, way back when.
It is difficult, I think, especially if you're doing that with a partner of some kind, because you might value like slightly different things,
Right.
or they might not want to be getting rid of so many things. I definitely have experienced that in my partnership. We definitely have different views of minimalism,
Oh,
but
for sure.
it's a
Yes.
great discussion point, I guess. Um, I guess now that you have more space available to you, because are you living in a house
We're
now?
renting a house now.
Okay, nice. Yeah. How have you maintained that lifestyle? Because I found like when I transitioned from moving in vehicles like more often into an actual house, I feel like I have always found things, like even if they're used things, or people would give me things and I just like accumulate. So how have you maintained that minimalist lifestyle?
It's actually if somebody were to walk into our house, they'd probably think we're poor college students because we've been here almost 6 months now and we still haven't bought the first piece of furniture. So we actually took the mattress that was in the van, are sleeping on that on the floor in our bedroom with no other furniture because we don't need a dresser. The only clothes that we have fit in the closet. And we
Perfect.
didn't need to buy any more clothes because we've been living with the same clothes for 2.5 years. And then it's a 1,500 square foot house. It's enormous. So my dog is actually free to roam around all of the place now. And it's 4 bedrooms, but 3 of those are offices. We both work from home full time. So this is actually really nice now. I do have the space to have a printer, my computer monitors and things. So I've actually really enjoyed having an actual desk. Being in the house now, whereas in the van, we had to pack up everything every day. We'd had to share a little table.
Mhm.
So now my husband has an office with a desk and chair, but there's no filing cabinets, there's no lamps, there's nothing else but a desk and a chair. And then the other bedroom is what we call the foodie lab, which now has probably the most furniture in it because it has my freeze dryer on a table, shelving units for all my dehydrators and ingredients and all those kinds of things. And then our camp table that we've had in the van, I have my vacuum sealer on and some other things that I do for like photo shoots. So that's actually where most of the furniture is. We don't own a couch.
Mm.
We found that we really only sit down 2 hours a day. So I don't need a couch. We sit on the floor for a few hours. And I have no intention of buying anything else anytime soon. The only thing we really bought when we moved in were kitchen appliance things, or
Oh,
I
yeah.
guess silverware, because we were eating on our titanium camp bowls and cups and those kinds of things in the van. So we actually bought ceramic plates, a set of 4. That's it. We bought glassware, like glass bowls, because I was cooking
Mhm.
in plastic and I'm trying not to cook in plastic anymore.
Yeah.
So like stainless mixing bowls. But other than that, we haven't bought anything. No pictures for the walls, no lamps, no, that's it. It's a really empty house and I don't mind.
Yeah, I think that it really is to a personal preference, you
Mhm.
know? I mean, I feel like I don't have too many decorations either, but like maybe some people really value that ambiance. I don't really know.
Well, the
But
one thing I have hung up on thinking about decorations is I really appreciate my niece and nephew. They do artwork for me. So I do have
oh,
a bunch of like kitty artwork all over my office walls. But other than that, I haven't bought anything.
no, that's so cute. Um, yeah, what was I thinking? Oh yeah, because you've been in this house now for say like 6 months or
Mhm.
something, I think you said.
Yep, 6 months.
Um, So, like, do you miss anything from that smaller space, like the van? Like you talked about some things that you really enjoy now, like having an office,
Mhm.
but are there things that you miss about having a smaller living
What's
experience?
funny is that I feel claustrophobic in the house.
What?
That's really weird. I don't like these walls. I really miss being able to sit outside. We always lived in the wilderness. We always lived
Mhm.
on BLM land, national forests, those kinds of things. So I miss having the openness of being outside and sitting in my camp chair and my laptop on my lap kind of thing and working there. So that's probably what I miss the most is just the calmness of the trees, the birds chirping and that kind of thing versus now the UPS guy driving by, my dog barking at them, or our neighbors being very loud. So I actually feel claustrophobic now that I'm in the house.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful we still have the van. So actually, I'm doing a hike right now through the central coast of California, and I found the perfect place to go hide in the van. So I'm going to start going. It's on the top of a ridge that overlooks the ocean. So I think on those days that I start feeling claustrophobic again, then I'm just going to hop in the van and take my laptop and work up there for a few days or so.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense though, because really you're not spending a great deal of time within the van. Like you're not just like
Right.
stuck inside of
No.
there.
Right.
Like a lot of your living area is outside of the van.
Right.
Um, I'm guessing like a lot of people try to downsize just in their daily life, especially like spring. We always think of spring cleaning. I always remember my parents downsizing during those time periods. So whether or not someone is just trying to purge their home, or maybe they want to move into an RV, a van, a tiny house, whatever it may be, what advice would you give them about approaching that type of experience?
Just kind of based on the process that we went through, I think starting the purge early on and just getting rid of little things at a time so you don't feel so overwhelmed like we did when we had the one enormous garage sale because we were moving out 2 days later. So
Oh,
it
wow.
had to all go
Mhm.
because we'd gotten so busy just trying to get like the van finished. We built it ourselves. So we were so busy doing all those kinds of things that we hadn't taken the time to purge. So if it's something you're thinking about doing in the future, just start kind of like, let's get rid of a little bit of things that we haven't used. And then you just start working your way through it. So maybe it doesn't feel so overwhelming when the day does come that you're like, okay, we're making this change and here we go.
Yeah, that makes sense. It kind of reminds me of there's an older episode about how to do a waste audit. I feel like it would be a similar approach. Like you would start maybe in your closet, just
Right.
downsize that one weekend, and then maybe go move to your kitchen and kind of just like go through it instead of one giant one like
One
you,
giant one like I did.
which obviously it works. So if you need to, like you have that option.
Right. Mhm.
Um, what about like generally sticking to that lifestyle? Because obviously you enjoy the way that your home is and everything, but um, do you think that that's difficult for more people or other
I
people?
would say this is unusual lifestyle. I think that, to be honest, I think the hardest part is going to be we don't have a place for our family to visit. So
Oh,
we're eventually going to have to buy another bed, probably, maybe a couch, probably, so people have a place to sit down. So right now it's really easy for me because I have been living in a backpack for so long.
mm,
Again, my husband is not as much of a minimalist, so we'll probably pick up a few things because he just appreciates the comforts of things a little more than I do, which is totally fine. But he's also not one to get a bunch of trinkets and all that kind of thing. And you actually mentioned something about accepting gifts from people.
mhm.
That's something that I just don't do anymore, which is probably odd that we don't give Christmas presents anymore. I'd rather go visit my family and spend time with them than getting stuff.
Yeah.
And then I've done a few interviews and some classes and things, and people are like, "Oh, I want to send you a thank you gift." I'm like, it's just saying thank you is plenty for me. I don't need more stuff, whether it's a sticker or a book, something like that. It's just stuff. So I think that's just something that I've kind of transitioned to that I think some people probably feel like it's a little weird because maybe it is an unusual lifestyle. Um, but yeah, I think the hardest part is going to be like, yeah, when we want family to actually start coming to visit us, we are going to have to buy a few things.
Yeah, having that guest set up is really nice for that sort
Mhm.
of thing. And also the gifts, I have found that to personally be really hard because I'm on the same page as you. I don't really want to give or like take gifts from other people,
Mhm.
but like other people in my family really struggle with that concept. So we've
Mhm.
had to have a lot of conversations
Yeah.
about what we can do instead. And those things can be kind of uncomfortable, especially if you're like, we've talked about this so many times and I appreciate that you gave me this, but
Right.
also yeah, I feel like that's a difficult balance.
It's
So,
getting easier because I've started this just since we've been in the van because my parents understood a little bit more when we were in the van. We didn't have room to put
mm,
things. So I've continued it on since then. And again, like I was mentioning earlier, I love my mom dearly, but she collects things. And she just doesn't understand like why I don't want stuff.
mhm.
It's a completely different generation. She's in her 70s now. So it's just a different generation. And then my sister has children, so they're always buying toys and all those kinds of things. So I'm the one aunt that doesn't buy toys. I'm the aunt that buys you like crafts, I'm the aunt that buys you like educational things or things to go like maybe a camera to go take pictures to do things. I don't like buying plastic toys that they're going to play for maybe a month or two, then they go in the
Right.
garbage kind of thing. So I'm that aunt that doesn't necessarily buy like the coolest, hottest toy that's being sold at the time.
Well, it adds a different sense of value
Right.
to their life, I'm sure. Um, yeah, I guess do you have any other types of advice or information that you would want to share with people about if they were approaching any type of downsize?
Um, Other than, I mean, just again, just thinking kind of ahead of, do you really need this stuff? I mean, is this, how much do you really value it? I mean, is buying a candle, like, do you really need that candle, which is going to end up being garbage at the time? You know, do you really need to buy that extra bag because it matches an outfit? I don't know. I mean, just those kind of things. Or is this something you're going to use over and over and over again to make it worth being, if it is stuff, make sure it's something you're going to use over and over versus a one-time kind of thing.
Yeah.
But again, I just have a different kind of thought process around those things than
Yeah,
most
no,
people.
I love that though, because I feel like when I think of minimalism, it is that core question of, is this necessary, or like what is the purpose and intended use of this? And there is that one, I don't know, this zero waste Instagram person that I follow, I can't remember her name, but she always has this like 30-day rule where it's like, if you're buying clothes, will you wear this 30 times or not? And then if you're like, no, I only want to wear it once, then don't buy it.
Don't buy it, right?
Yeah. And I like that approach. It sounds really similar to kind of what you were kind of explaining.
Right. Well, and I just think of it too, just environmentally. I just think, is this going to just end up in the garbage within the next few months to even a year kind of thing? Is this something that if I do want to use it for a time period, can I gift it to somebody else? Can I go to Goodwill? Can somebody else make use of it? So it does continue getting used and not just immediately go into the garbage. So.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I guess it might be hard to remember, but did you throw away very many items, or did you sell or donate most of it?
Sold and donate almost all of it.
Okay.
There were very few things that we actually had to, I think, trashing were mostly like my Letterman jacket, that I don't think anybody would have an appreciation for our Letterman jacket from 1995. Although we may have donated it thinking it could be a good costume for somebody. I can't remember.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it could be something like that, but I think there was very little that we actually threw away. And I'm also a very big person on like plastic, recycling plastic. So I was really careful about if something was stored in like plastic wrap in storage units and that kind of thing, that there's actually plasticfilmrecycling.org. I don't know if many people know about that website. They take plastic wrap, whereas a lot of the grocery stores and home curb recycling do not. So I was really careful about that kind of stuff too, as to any kind of things that things were stored in. I tried to recycle those as much as I could. Like plastic totes, we recycled all those. That we didn't take with us. So
yeah, it does take a little bit more planning, I think, maybe. And I'll share a link to that recycling if people want to check it out, because it could be useful just in their daily life too.
Well, and that's what we did. I happen to think about this. Everything that went to Goodwill was in paper sacks, like grocery sacks that I've been collecting. I didn't even put things in garbage bags.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Because I didn't want to throw away the garbage bags.
Yeah, and you can pretty much guarantee that that's what they would be doing.
That's going to get thrown away. Yeah.
Open the bag and then toss it.
Right. So I was hopeful at least maybe the paper sacks would go in their, their cardboard recycling or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, I feel like that was a lot of really useful information, especially if someone is new to approaching this type of pursuit, even if it's just they want a little less clutter in their home. So if people want to learn more about you, I don't know if you posted all about your van life journey, or if they want to learn more about Backcountry Foodie, how can they do that?
What they want to learn about Backcountry Foodie, you go to backcountryfoodie.com. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook under Backcountry Foodie. And I also have a YouTube channel. We did do a van tour video on our YouTube channel. If people are interested in like how we built it out. We need to do a follow-up video of like how was life in the van and like how we changed things, because it was very different from what we expected, to be honest. We really thought we would be on the move all the time. And it started out, we would be on the move, but then we slowly would stay put for longer and longer periods of time. So we do need to do an update on that, because it was a very unique experience. I missed it a lot. Chris my husband got to the point where he missed hot showers, whereas again, being a backpacker, I can be dirty for 5 days and I don't mind. So it was more, he had kind of hit the point where he's like, I need hot showers. He missed his job kind of thing. We'd actually planned on moving into a fifth wheel as a transition. And living in campgrounds, but the timing right now with COVID still, people buying a lot of fifth wheels and RVs for travel, they were non-existent. So unfortunately, we couldn't get one in time before he started his new job. So that's how we ended up in the house.
Do you think that you'll maybe do that in the future, or just kind of see how it plays out?
I think now that he's gotten a taste of living in a house again, he's not going back. So that's why we kept the van. So that's my way of like, I'm going to be like, I need to check out for a few days. So I'm just going to go and hide. We do take it out on the weekends. We go to the high Sierras now pretty regularly. I mean, we go skiing and those kinds of things. So we haven't completely gotten rid of the lifestyle,
Mhm.
but it's just not the same as it was before.
Yeah, no, I love that you kept the van. I feel like that happens with a lot
Yeah.
of people. Just now you have a very awesome adventure vehicle. And
Mhm.
if you want to drop off for like a month or something, you can.
I can, yeah. And again,
Cool.
it's cheap, so we're not paying for hotel reservations, and
Yeah, that is
I
so
mean, it's
expensive.
the best having like your clothes with you, you have a refrigerator, all the food is with us, all those kind of things. So that's part of it too. I don't like paying for hotels. So
Neither do I. And I mean, there are a lot of opportunities for people to, I guess, like test out van life. You can
Mhm,
rent vans from people or companies. So if it's something that you're not sure you want to do,
mhm.
you could always like do a week in a van and
Right.
see maybe this is a good option or maybe you hate it a lot.
Well, and I think it's still relatively popular that you could sell it too. If you were to invest in one, I don't
Mhm.
think you would have any trouble selling it. So if it weren't for you, then you don't have to feel like you're really stuck in it. That you can always go back to work. I mean, that's what we did. You can go back to work, you can get back in a house, you can always do your old lifestyle. But that was kind of one of my things I try to encourage people is like take the leap. Like if that's something you're considering, take the leap because you'll never know what you're
Mhm.
missing if you never actually try.
Yeah, at least try it and see
Yeah.
how it goes. Well, very cool. Thank you so much for sharing
Oh,
your
sure.
story. It's really interesting to hear from different people's experiences living in vehicles and what they liked and didn't like. And I hope that other people gathered some value from it too.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for having me.